The views and opinions expressed on this station do not reflect the owners, management, staff, clients, or partners.
It's Wednesday, the 18th day of November in 2020. Welcome to the Daily Hour brought to you by Medical House and Lindo's. I'm Jamal Hartman along with Carla Zool. Thanks for making us part of your daily routine. If you haven't already, share the link. Start a watch party. Just get the conversation out there to your network. Look, we're getting close to family time. I know some of us won't be able to get around our families, but if we're lucky enough to get around our families, even if it's a Zoom dinner, you don't want to be the only one that doesn't know what everybody else is talking about. So, or be the only one that has an idea of what's going on. So share the conversation. Get it to your network. Don't be selfish. Don't be like Carla, folks. Don't be that person. Oh, sorry.
Don't be like me.
I forgot you can hear me. Another good one for you today, though. We have David Rogers stopping by from the Bermuda Health Council. So there were questions on some of the lists lately about who to report things, health complaints to, things of that nature. So this is an important conversation to so many people throughout social media. The Daily Play is a say it, don't sing it. So she's guessing the lyrics of a song. I'm not going to preface it with what I say every day. It's an easy one. I'm not going to do that because at the end of the day, folks, this is Carla. This is Carla. And I'm not
going to... I will survive.
Oh,
I will survive.
What was that?
I was practicing my non-singing for the singing part. And that's my theme, no matter what you say, because you always say, it's so easy. I will survive.
No. I said I'm not prefacing it with that today. But we will end the show with Carla saying what the song is, not singing what the song is. So stay tuned to that. But before we get to the conversation, the focus for the day with Mr. Rogers and all of the Daily Play and everything else, there's a couple things. I know Carla, I said one thing, and then I sent Carla the discussion topics. I'm like, let's talk about this, and then she's probably like, I know by the time I wake up he'll send me another thing, which usually is the case, and I sent her another thing. But a couple of things we want to talk about with the audience today, right, is one, it looks like Bermuda is going authority crazy. The second thing is, were you able to read that article? I know it was a paywall, but there's a few articles about New York City tourism not expected to rebound for another 5 years. So those are the kind of things that I definitely want to touch on today. But the first thing, Carla, I want to talk about is the authority factor.
Mm-hmm.
Minister Renee Ming yesterday, she's the Minister of National Security, right?
Yep.
She announced that they're going to be putting together another authority, like a police authority. I mean, I don't get it. I maybe someone can help me. What is a police authority gonna do?
I don't know. I mean, not that I don't know, but can people be objective in Bermuda when it comes to bodies like that? That's my thing.
Well, to be clear, and let me read the quote. Renee Ming said, quote, "We are seeking to introduce a police authority which will compromise Government House, the government, the police, and laymen working together to establish Bermuda's policing priorities and determine the funding required to properly support our valued service." So let me just look on my list right here. Right? So I have BMA, that's Bermuda Monetary Authority. We have that. We have the BTA, Bermuda Tourism Authority, right? We have the Bermuda Airport Authority. I know there's more authorities, and they're talking about an education authority and also now a police authority. My question is a few questions, and I have this for the Bermudian public because this may be something the public supports wholeheartedly. I don't know. But one, what is an authority going to be able to do that the current people in spaces aren't able to do? That's one. Two, have authorities proven successful in Bermuda? And what places is a police authority going to be modeled after to improve policing in Bermuda? So those are some of the questions that we should have, but I don't get it.
But I still feel the same way insofar as it's almost related to yesterday's conversation in regards to the 5G. Will people's interests really be varied? Will the layman's input be any less valuable than those who are higher up? That's what I meant by objective as such. So it's like if someone makes a suggestion, like a layman, I say I'm on there, I make a suggestion, but then a government person or whomever may say, but that's not how it works, like the shutting down part. So I don't know how it will make a difference in the mechanisms. I understand the objective, but I don't know if it will prove to be, what's the word, fruitful, for lack of a better word.
Talent Clark says, I personally think the BTA is successful. Mine is your personal feelings from heart. I don't. I haven't been in there. I don't. And this is what I want people to, and obviously Talent's in that space as well, is in a different space. But I have actually comparative analysis with the Bermuda Department of Tourism and BTA. If you compared them, the amount of money that people were being paid in the BTA versus the Bermuda Department of Tourism, you expect more results. Also, comparatively speaking, you know, I always look at Bermuda, like right now, Bermuda is flouting the, what's it called? The Work from Bermuda program, right? And the government right now can spit out, oh, we have 200 people signed up or 300. They could say 1,000, 2,000. To me, that's not a success unless we're given a comparative analysis. Well, what's that compared to Barbados or the Cayman Islands or whoever else is doing it? When it comes to tourism, and we'll get to that with the New York part, I think Bermudians are very narrow in terms of what they see because they're only told what they're being told. If the Bermuda Tourism Authority is having a summit, they're telling you what's going to secure their positions, what's going to make you believe in them. The Bermuda Tourism Authority, in my opinion, did nothing differently from what the Bermuda Department of Tourism did except drive social media. That was in their mandate. They did not improve Bermuda tourism as a whole, and they didn't play and plan for a rainy day. But I don't want to get stuck on that. But when I look at authorities, I want to see something that makes me believe that a police authority is going to put us in a better space. Sean Smith, Carla.
The police authority will do nothing as the governor is still in charge.
Well, I thought of that. I did think of that, and I did see that it would involve the governor as well, right? But I saw that and I was just like, okay, is this a way of the government having more input, or like, how does it work? And maybe, you know, Minister Ming is going to provide further details going forward, but I'm just interested to see how Bermuda benefits from another authority when in truth, authorities have not proven necessarily overall to be the be-all end-all. How about we compare ourselves with, well, that's what I did just now. The previous Department of Tourism. Okay, to break it down easy to compare them is ask honest people who worked in both, and you will get honest responses about the Department of Tourism and BTA. At the end of the day, honest people will tell you the only difference was social media, and that was inevitable because of the time. There was no huge difference. And the reason I'm defensive about that is because I wasn't necessarily a fan of the Department of Tourism, but I'm defensive because the media at the time, especially because of who the tourism ministers were, mainly Dr. Ewart Brown, drove in the minds of people that the Bermuda Department of Tourism was such garbage that it became this thing. And then because the BTA was the baby of the OBA and that media then drove it to make you believe this is the saving grace, well, this is what you get. But the Department of Tourism ran circles around the BTA. Trust me. You had vested people with a vested interest to the country. You didn't have non-Bermudians who had no interest and were literally doing what they could to make their next life better for themselves. Charles Jeffers says, when it comes to tourism, an increase in market share is a true measure. Well, that's what I said, Charles. You have to do comparative analysis, and they don't do that. And this is why I'm saying I think this is one of the important parts of this show is that we can think and discuss beyond what people are normally told and what's taught to them, because you have to measure outward in order to get a true sense. But another authority, obviously, most of the audience seems fine with another authority, police authority. But I dig what Sean Smith said, Carla. The governor's still in charge, so does it really make that much of a difference? I don't know. I would love to see how it looks, but let's turn our attention to the tourism. The New York tourism not recovering until 2025. That's scary, huh? Because go ahead.
Well, no, reading the article, it did say, and I'm hoping that it will be faster, because it said that it took 4 years to bounce back from 9/11. But as someone who was traumatized by 9/11 and wasn't even in New York, I think it's a different set of circumstances. So maybe people will bounce back quicker, especially with them talking about these, I often call them steroids, vaccinations that are hopefully to be on the market by first quarter of 2021. I think, I'm hoping, I mean, I'm not an expert, but I think it'll be quicker than 4 years, because I find, especially in our generation, we tend to forget. So the pandemic was big in the moment. Once that vaccination starts rolling out, and especially if it seems like it's making a difference, people will hop right back to normal. People like me may not, because I tend to be paranoid for like forever. But the average person, especially those of you who love to travel, you'll be hopping. I would say maybe 2022, 23, because 21 to ride out and see what happens with the vaccine. And then I would say heading back to normal.
Yeah, I think tourism will recover faster than 5 years. I do. I am hopeful. I'm hopeful for Bermuda. I really am, because at the end of the day, Bermuda needs tourism. Bermuda really needs tourism. When you look at New York City, I don't necessarily think they need it as much as Bermuda, but it's definitely something that still drives their economy. I'm hopeful for Bermuda, because I believe that over the next few years, Bermudians are going to be allowed to be innovative, to find new ways to bring people to the island. And so with that, I believe that Bermuda will bounce back quicker than other places, but it's still going to be a long road to recovery. One of the most fascinating things that I read in the New York Times article was the people that it impacted most. And I don't know if that stood out to you, but this paragraph right here says the loss of tourism has been especially acute for less educated workers, said James A. Parrott, Director of Economics and Fiscal Policy at the Center for New York Affairs. That's what he said. The hospitality industry added 130,000 jobs in 10 years before the pandemic, making it the largest employer of less educated workers in the city. That being said, Carla, and this is no knock on Bermudians who work in tourism and hospitality, but we have to factor in, those kinds of things in Bermuda as well. Where are these jobs going to appear for them if hotels are not opening anytime soon or the cruise ships don't return? There has to be a plan for this, right?
Yeah, it does. And I think it's also an opportunity for people, it's been said before, but to retool, and not only retool, but stop putting people in boxes, because there could be someone that was in that industry before, but maybe they can do something else, but they never thought they could, and it wasn't tapped into. So I think people are going to have to look deep within and not seize and say, well, because I lost my job as a whomever, I can't do anything else. I think it's a great time for people to really tap into who they are and see what possibilities they are. But from an employer perspective, this would be time for people to give people a chance as well. And of course, depending on the field, but I'm sure that there are opportunities, and we need to stop looking outside of Bermuda. Jamal might just need a little polishing and could end up being that put in whatever bracket.
Indeed, indeed. Talent Clark says, I feel cruises will be back next year, summer, fall. I don't disagree. It's just a matter of whether or not people will be on them. Well, let's get a quick poll in the audience. Because, I said back in June that I would go on a cruise and you all thought I was crazy. So let's get a poll. Folks, would you be comfortable taking a cruise by the end of next year? Answer that question in the audience. Would you be comfortable with that? Charles says, Carla is right. A lot of it will depend on how widespread the vaccines are accepted. Well, we're going to have Dr. Kariko Golden on Friday as well. We'll be talking about that. So good point there. Miriam Simmons, yes, I agree. It's time to look within, step outside of our boxes. Absolutely. A lot of times the answers are within. So we're going to get to the answers. But again, the question right now, folks, would you be interested in taking a cruise between now and the end of next year? Let us know. Spread that. That's the question right now. Carla's going to get to the news, and we'll come back. We've got Mr. David Rogers from the Bermuda Health Council joining us to have a conversation.
Health Minister Kim Wilson says it is anticipated that in the near future, arriving visitors will have to secure a negative PCR pre-departure test that is no older than 5 days old prior to arrival in Bermuda. Currently, the pre-departure test is required to be no more than 7 days old. However, Ms. Wilson says as the availability of pre-departure testing has improved and the number of imported COVID-19 cases has slowly increased, it has been decided this is an appropriate change to make at this time, but officials will continue to evaluate this protocol on a regular basis and adjust as necessary. Adding, with those students who are studying overseas more likely to come home this month and next to visit family and friends, vigilance around returning travelers and compliance with the mobile quarantine provisions in effect is especially important. The government announced that Ray Jones, CPA, has been appointed the director of the Department of Economic Development. Mr. Jones, a certified public accountant, joins the newly created department following a thorough recruitment process. For the last 7 years, he has been the finance director at the Bermuda Economic Development Corporation. The Department of Economic Development was formed following an internal review. A recommendation was made to and accepted by Cabinet that the Business Development Unit, FinTech Business Unit, and ICT Policy and Innovation be combined to form a single department. The new department has 9 staff who are members of the aforementioned sections. The creation of the department does not increase the number of posts or personnel within the public service. Have you ever wondered what it would be like to adopt a child? Videos on social media report all the time about children and the surprising reveal of their finalized adoption to a new family. However, this doesn't always occur. It takes approximately 3 years for a child to be finalized for adoption. Because it doesn't happen often enough, Adoption Day is a day created to bring awareness to these facts. So let's now learn about Adoption Day and how it helps children all over the world find new families. To celebrate, you can start by spreading awareness of adoption through social media by using the hashtag National Adoption Day. Or if you're really thinking hard, consider the option to adopt a child and weigh the pros and cons of having one. Turning to weather, Bermuda's high today is expected to reach 71. It's going to reach 78 in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and 58 in Manchester, UK. And on a programming note, don't forget to tune in to the full100radio.com tonight for Nighttime Jams, featuring some of your favorite romantic classics. That's your Daily Hour news break.
Alrighty, thanks for that, caller. So the question was, with cruises expected to return by the end of next year, whether or not people would be comfortable taking one. We have a couple yes, nope, yes. Already booked, looks like it. Depends. Well, I mean, that wasn't his yes or no, but yep, depends. I agree. It does depend on a lot. Yes, nope, yes. We have a definitely. Nope, maybe 2022. I love cruises. Can't we take another? But it all depends on how well COVID is under control. I think that goes for a lot of people. And I would like to take a cruise between now and the end of next year. Hopefully, if they are not able to protect the customers, they will not carry on. So interesting responses there. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be back with our guest for the day, Mr. David Rogers from the Bermuda Health Council. Stick with us.
Good day, Medical House Doris speaking. Can I help you?
Medical House is Bermuda's leading one-stop shop for healthcare. Bermuda's top doctors, dentists, care homes, and the hospital choose Medical House for a wide range of products.
Anything that we ask them to do, they come through.
These same professional quality products are available to you for home healthcare.
If we can use them, we definitely do so.
Medical House is best known for its uniforms and footwear. It also has restaurant uniforms that stand up to even the toughest shifts. If you're on your feet all day, Medical House has comfortable and stylish shoes that are also durable and easy to clean. Everyone needs some help cleaning up, and Medical House has got it. Leading-edge janitorial, facility, and maintenance supplies are all here. Medical House is on Millreach Lane in Pembroke, where there's private parking right outside the door. Call or visit Medical House today.
Recently, we've been re-examining the way we eat sweets as we live under the shadow of diabetes, a bona fide epidemic in Bermuda and abroad. All the makers of alternative sweeteners are striving to create that safety margin, and this month, we're featuring a heavyweight contender, Lakanto monk fruit sweetener, fighting the battle of the glycemic index. Originating in southern China, the unique monk fruit imparts sweetness without sucrose or fructose, resulting in the healthiest sugar alternative. Try Lakanto sugar-free golden, liquid, and classic monk fruit sweetener. Lindo's, why go anyplace else?
All right, welcome back to the big show. Carla Zul, Jamal Hartman. It is the Daily Hour. Thanks again to Medical House and Lindo's, along with Crimson Multimedia over there at Channel 82, where the show can also be watched for those who may not have internet access. Also can be found on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, and the Full 100 radio station. Download the Full 100 radio app, available for Android and Apple devices if you don't have it already. Want to remind me before the end of the show, if we have time, to talk about the 5G thing conversation last night on Channel 82.
Real quick, would you go on a cruise?
I already said yeah.
Oh, I didn't know if your answer had changed because mine didn't either. Okay.
Oh. Yeah, we look, we oppose one another. Anyway, without further ado, let's bring in our guest for the day, Mr. David Rogers. We got to ask him soon as he comes in, would he go on a cruise too? So we're going to put him on the spot. Good morning, my friend. How are you?
Good morning, guys. Nice. You guys have an interesting dynamic. It's pretty good. Nice to meet you, Jamal. Nice to meet you, Carla.
She usually disagrees with me for the sake of it. I don't know, but really quickly before we get into the conversation, are you going on a cruise or not? So,
so I'm born and bred Bermudian. So one thing I love about our people is that we're independent spirits. We definitely like to play by our own rules. As you say, Bermuda's another world. Now, for me personally, I'm not going on a cruise anytime soon. But hey, independence is in our nature. If that's what you want to do, we have we have a top-notch healthcare system here. So if something happens to you, we'll look out for you when you get back, man.
Well played. Well played.
I loved the preface. I was like, okay, which hill is he going down? And I was like, come home to mama. Come here, boo.
Well played. Well played. But
I have to set the table for you. I can't let you just jump in. You have to give some context.
I love it. I love it. Well played. But thank you so much for joining us for another important conversation.
We really appreciate you having us here, man.
No problem. So let's get into, for those who may not know, what is the purpose? What's the mandate of the Bermuda Health Council before we go into anything else?
So I really appreciate you asking me that. That's really kind of the core of what we do, is try to plan for the healthcare needs of the island. So that's the first thing that we have to get right. The next thing is we try to educate people about what services and providers are located on the island. And then the next thing is we try to avoid exposing patients and the population to avoidable harm. And we do this through the regulation of industries. We do this through coordinating care on island. We do this through looking at the finances associated with health. So that's our core function. But we do other things too. We do things like license insurers and look at the basic set of benefits that all insurance policies contain. So we have a lot of other functions, but at the core, it's about that planning, that education, and that protection.
Alrighty.
What types of facilities are regulated on island?
So not all health facilities are regulated on island legislatively. We actually in Bermuda prefer a light touch when it comes to regulation. But if you're going strictly by the legislation, we regulate hospitals, diagnostic imaging facilities, laboratories, residential care homes, and then there's a large swath of facilities that have chosen to be voluntarily registered with us. And once again, this allows us to know what's in the health system, who's providing services in the health system, and ensuring that those individuals providing services are well trained and able to provide those services.
So what happens if I wanted to receive services from a medical facility? How would I know that they are regulated by you guys, whether it's mandate or voluntary? How would I know that?
Right. So when it comes to the legislated facilities, there's a requirement for them to display the registration certificate that's given from the Health Council, the Ministry of Health, and Occupational Health and Safety, depending on what categories they fall into. Now, for the voluntarily registered facilities, we also have that requirement. If you are going to be voluntarily registered with the Health Council, then you must display our certificate where patients and the general public can see it. And it's just a way that patients know that these facilities have provided information to assure that they're providing quality service.
So what type of facilities are not mandated legislatively? Just for an example.
Right. So a typical doctor's office, there's no legal requirement to register with any entity. However, on island, our practitioners typically want to move towards best practice. So the vast majority of medical practitioners, let's say occupational therapists, physiotherapists, even massage therapists and chiropractors have found that there's value in registering with the Health Council. We are able to provide things like the directory or the register that tells people exactly what service these professionals provide and what qualifications are associated with those services. And we're able to ensure that if something does happen, we can sort of trace it back to the practice, the practitioner, and to better understand and plan to make changes in the future to avoid avoidable harm, or cases like that.
So can you explain for our audience the regulation of equipment and how is that done?
So we've received the regulation of radiation emitting equipment relatively recently. So we're actually still working out the process of how that's going to be regulated and what the licensing process will look like. But this is specifically for things like X-ray machines, CT scanners, MRIs, ultrasound machines, anything that produces an image that's used in the diagnosis of a patient. Now, we're not touching any industrial X-rays or lasers or anything like that. This is strictly in the health realm, and it allows us to ring fence and focus in on what's needed to protect the public. But to tell the truth, the actors in the system really operate to a high degree of sophistication. They do a lot of the work for us. They're looking at the best practice. They're looking at the shielding. They're making sure they get accredited. But I was always taught, if it's not written down, it didn't happen. So what we're doing is just that extra step to ensure that everyone in the system is operating to at least a basic standard.
And can you explain for our audience what is the process or the general requirements to register a health facility?
So really easy. We're actually about to begin the next registration process, because we do these registration processes over a period of 2 years. So the next registration process is about to begin this month. And so this new process will be strictly online. Unfortunately, we won't be able to, for the facilities where a registration fee is applicable, we won't be able to set that online as yet, but the entire rest of the process can be done electronically. I shouldn't have to see one sheet of paper. We're trying to move towards a more sustainable office.
Gotcha. I have a few questions. Just
Shoot.
listening to you talk, I want to go back to, you said in the beginning when it came to regulation, insurance companies as well, right?
Mhm.
All right. There was a private company that recently, it was reported that they purchased a medical practice. Is that something that the Bermuda Health Council oversees?
So we are responsible for the regulation of health insurers. Now, that particular purchase, and that's not necessarily something that we would have, regulatory oversight over. However, we always do try to encourage innovation in the space. So we are actually encouraged that practitioners and operators in the space are trying to find new ways to bring quality healthcare to individuals. Discussions have been had between the Health Council and the various insurers, and we're not in the practice of dictating what health service providers and insurers do. It's more of a collaborative process. Mm-hmm. So, if this is a model that works, mm-hmm. then we'll definitely chase it down. However, if this is not in the best interest of the country, then we'll have to maybe ring fence some areas or make some changes to the legislation. And that's actually one of the nice things about working at the council, is that we have the ability to directly affect the path that Bermuda's health system moves down. And we can do it in a relatively rapid fashion.
Okay. A lot of talk, obviously, it's 2020, it's the year of the pandemic. Very unfortunate.
Yeah.
But
different life, right?
It is. It's created circumstances that most people never expected to live in through their lifetimes. But that said, there's been conversations over the last week. Just 2 days ago, while we were on air, we reported that CNN had popped up that Moderna, I believe, had a vaccine. We'll have Dr. Karika Weldon joining the show on Friday to speak directly to the vaccine. But from a Bermuda Health Council perspective, would you be involved in regulating who, I guess, is able to distribute them and provide them to people in Bermuda?
So look, medicine is a practice, and there is a certain amount of discretion that physicians and the medical community has to prescribe, diagnose, and advocate for their patients. So the control of the vaccine is not something that the Health Council would necessarily be involved in. We may be involved in actually procuring the vaccine, because we do have international partners that we do have relationships with, but also the Ministry of Health has a lot of relationships and partners that will allow them to be involved in the procurement of the vaccine. Now, that area is not my particular area of expertise, but I'm fully confident in our infrastructure to acquire the vaccines and to distribute it to those who need it the most in a timely fashion.
Gotcha. We have some questions from the audience. Let's go. Talent Clark says, wouldn't it be recommended to all be registered with the Health Council?
I would definitely recommend that all be registered with the Health Council. The other stakeholders in the system, the insurers and referring practitioners do find value in having the Health Council there to register businesses. And some of them have chosen to use the Health Council registration as a seal of approval because, once again, it does ensure some sense of minimum protection against avoidable harm to the patient. So I would personally only refer individuals who had been refer to individuals who had been registered with the Health Council. But once again, it's not a legislative requirement. It's not a legislative requirement at this time. However, it's definitely definitely the best practice for practitioners operating on island.
All righty. Let's go back to the comments. It looks like Liz Simmons says, do we regulate private mental health services?
So once again, that's not one of the areas that has legislated regulations. Many of the mental health services would fall into a category called unregulated professionals. Okay, maybe you have psychologists and some of the allied health who are regulated, but some, let's say, counselors and may not have the apparatus in place to do full oversight. However, the Health Council does provide some oversight on that sector in the form of voluntary registration. And on a further step, we can be involved in sort of voluntary inspections and voluntary assessments, which further ensures that there's a level of quality and further allows us to educate the public about what these practitioners are doing and what their methods are.
I find that so interesting because mental health is so important.
It is.
But yet, it's just blowing my mind to hear you say that, because I would think that in an industry that is so integral in keeping people together as such, that it's unregulated. I wasn't really expecting an answer, but I'm sorry.
I mean, and it's not a criticism of our system. We have the public and has to set priorities as to what they want, and we as part of the civil service or part of the Quango, the authority that deals with health, we take our lead from the public. So if the public wants something, then yes, we will work to make it happen. It's not our role to dictate what we believe is the best thing for the island. That's heavy-handed, and that's, like I said before, Bermuda has a very independent spirit, very free spirit. We like to forge our own path. Now, do I have a preference as to whether certain industries should be regulated or have oversight a little more ensconced in legislation? Yes, 100%. Do I think it would be better? Do I think it would allow us to more accurately plan our health system out? Do I think it would give the public more information about the services they're using? Do I think people would be better protected? Of course. However, that is something we're working towards every day. We're working to try and create an environment, to create the mechanisms where when we do get the legislation to regulate all facilities, or if we do, if that's something that the population wants, that we're ready to do it. We're ready to hit the ground running from day one.
Another question from the audience. I think you kind of may have tied it up in some of your comments, but Charles H. Jeffers too says, why are therapy services, occupational and physical, not viewed as essential as medical services when it comes to reimbursements for the elderly who have future care?
I think that's a fair question. When looking at designing plans, there are trade-offs that have to be made. And I think any of us would definitely value the work that allied health, rehab, mental health, we would definitely value all of their contributions. But once again, decisions are made based on trade-offs for what the need is. And what we have to do at the council is to promote the services that we think Bermuda should be utilizing. We have to say, look, here's a registered facility. They have top quality. They're following these guidelines. These are the suggested guidelines for a patient with your condition. Utilize them. And that's what we try to do with our registrations.
Alrighty. Goes to another question. If you have questions for Mr. Rogers, please feel free to ask away. We have Liz Simmons again. She says, it seems that some professionals are held to a higher standard than others if registration is unregulated. For some, she then goes on to say this opens the door for malpractice. Did you want to respond to that?
I think that's a fair comment. What I do think has been one of our saving graces is the fact that our medical practitioners come from all over, and many come from the highest tier educational institutions in the world. We punch way above our weight in terms of sophistication and expertise. And that type of pride in service and that type of level of training has allowed us to have certain protections that maybe other jurisdictions haven't had historically. Now, what our role at the council is to make sure that we codify those mechanisms, that we reach out to practitioners, learn their best practice, and ensconce that in either regulation or legislation. That we look at, that we take from the best codes of practice, the best algorithms of diagnostics, and have these discussions with practitioners, ensconce it in their policy, and then have some oversight, allow the practitioners themselves to have some oversight over their professions to ensure that patients are receiving the correct care. And we have statutory bodies that actually perform many of these functions. The statutory bodies are responsible for ensuring that the practitioners have the education and the training they need to ensure good service, and the continuing education, and ensuring that what's important for the profession is brought before policymakers. And these statutory bodies, they're voluntary organizations where people dedicate a lot of their time to ensuring that the public is protected from avoidable harm and in receiving the right care at the right time when they need it.
I definitely think that I appreciate all of that. I really do. But Bermuda definitely doesn't have like a suing culture like maybe the United States. So I think that's where some people will be left uneasy. Honestly, you want to trust. I've never had a bad experience with a doctor in Bermuda. I've had great relationships with all of my medical professionals, but I think that's probably where she's talking about a bit right there. Back to the questions. Kimberly Jackson says, is there a push to focus and cover more preventative services, which is more cost effective than paying out on the back end?
I think we'll always promote preventative services. The department, the Ministry of Health, has a whole wing dedicated to health promotion and preventative services. And things like your 6-month checkup at the dentist, your checkup at the doctor, we have pushed for a lot of public health, your vaccination. These are preventative services that have gone a long way in reducing Bermuda's mortality and morbidity. We have a relatively good life expectancy and a relatively good quality of life index. So I think from a public health standpoint, we are pushing those preventative initiatives. Now, we are dealing with non-communicable, so things like diabetes, things like kidney disease, which are definitely lifestyle related. And so the council has created initiatives like the Innovation Fund, where we want individuals to focus on these maladies that have a long-term impact and come up with innovative solutions that we will actually help to fund, to bring into the health system to assist our patients in a more proactive manner. If you want to hear more about that, definitely check out our website. It has a ton of information on how to bring those programs to bear, because once again, like I said, we're always into innovation into the health sector. If you can provide a program that can affect the public in a positive way, we'll look into it and we'll definitely try to support you.
Mr. Wilson, I'm just here really processing. You said something a few minutes ago about when we talked about the unregulation of mental health practitioners, and you said the people basically haven't asked for it as such. I'm just kind of surmising. Why can't, and some people may get upset when I'm about to say, but why can't the Bermuda Health Council,
people?
But why can't the Health Council big brother us? And, like your parents would say, do this because you may not understand it now, but you'll understand it later. So, for example, back to the mental health part, why can't it become regulated and give people what they may not realize that they need? Because for someone who just may not know, are they getting the right services? If someone's not regulated, they can only go by what the person's telling them. But how do they know that it's what's being done is unethical, for example? So why can't that be mandated that mental health practitioners across the board are regulated?
So I don't want to give anyone the impression that the entire swath of mental health services are not regulated. That's not what I said at all.
I agree.
So, you have psychologists, addiction counselors. I know legislation passed recently for social workers and counselors to be added to Allied Health, the Allied Health Act. So there is an effort to ring fence those professions and bring them bring the unregulated professionals into the fold. So, that is definitely acknowledged as a gap that both the ministry and the Health Council are moving to fill. Now, specifically talking about the facilities themselves, facilities are not required to be regulated or registered.
Okay.
So I just want to make sure that's perfectly clear. Now, in terms of big brothering, that's not necessarily our role. While we do have a mandate to regulate and coordinate and ensure accessibility to services, we found that that may not be the most successful way to introduce change into the Bermudian market. Do you understand what I'm saying? So remember a couple of years back, we call it Bragate, where people were putting, tacking bras up on the
Cabinet.
cabinet, Senate House. Those recommendations were based on best practices. Those recommendations were based on the best science that we had at the time. It wasn't necessarily our initiative. I'm not going to cast shade on the Health Council, but it was perfectly right what public health did. It was perfectly right to say that having this procedure done at this frequency actually caused more problems than it solved. But it's a very emotional experience, and a person's relationship with their health provider is deeply personal, right? I don't think you would take kindly to me dictating which doctor you should go to or which services you should access. Even though I may see the complaints and be like, dude, I wouldn't touch that guy with a stick, but I'm not, people
No,
really,
I get it. Yeah.
really, they treasure their freedom. But if you look at the information that the Health Council puts out, like our health nuggets and our newsletter and our memos and communications, we do put the information out there as to this is what we would believe would be the best for Bermuda. This is what we believe is right for Bermuda. This is the path that we're heading down. And all that information is out there. We can find it on our website and on various reports.
Let me just cut you off there because we are out of time. But I want to emphasize what you said, because this even goes back to yesterday's conversation, and that's why I'm happy that we're able to have these conversations on this platform, because the information's there. It's just a matter of whether people are actually going there to look for it. So I honestly appreciate you guys so much for coming on, connecting with this audience and engaging with this audience to have these conversations. One more question I want to get through, because it's been sitting there for about 10 minutes. If you can answer this in less than 60 seconds, it'd be helpful.
All right, 60 seconds, I'm on it.
Qatar Hut and Parenti says, with so many experts from different educational backgrounds and schools of thought, would it be more prudent to have national guidelines? Every country has different regulations. So how do we ensure everyone is on the same page?
That's a super important question. I actually look at it as an opportunity. We have health practitioners from all over the world, from New Zealand to Jamaica to India. I mean, every creed, every color operates here. And we have individuals from, the highest tier, the Oxfords, the Harvards, the Yales, guys operating at the very peak at the very best in their career. So we have an exciting opportunity to take what works from individuals who have the personal experience working in those systems. So if New Zealand does something really good, we can take what works from that, and we have the practitioners who can walk us through how it was done, how that was achieved in New Zealand or wherever. So I don't necessarily see it as a weakness. I think it's one of our biggest opportunities, really, because we don't have to be monolithic. We don't have to dictate this is the only way. Yes, we should set some basic parameters around, let's say, diabetic care, but we can look at the studies. We can look at the evidence. We're not tied into dogma. We don't have to say this is socialized, this is capitalist. We don't have to say that. We can take what works and call it anything we want. Indeed. Because we set our own destiny.
Indeed. David Rogers, thank you so much for
coming. Guys.
We definitely love having you all on, and it's so we can go for another couple hours. So that just means we have to do this more often. So thank you so much for coming, engaging with the audience. And before you go, any final thing you want to leave the people with, the actual website where they can visit you all?
Sure. Once again, if you're a health service provider who operates a health-related business, so that's any business that makes a healthcare claim, gonna heal you, gonna diagnose you, anything like that, think about registering with the Health Council. Our registration will be open sometime this month, with the deadline being December 31st. You can find more information about registering with the Health Council on bhec.bm. That's bhec.bm. Or you can reach out to the Health Council at healthcouncil at bhec.bm and shoot us an email, check the website, give us a call, and we will, not enough people call us. If you've got questions about the health system, just reach out. If I'm not the expert, there's somebody just down the hall who can tell you. So.
I'm actually surprised based on this list on Facebook that you all aren't bombarded with calls, but you may have just that I hope you're ready to catch. Thanks again. Look forward to having you back sometime soon.
Hey, I appreciate you guys.
Have a good day.
All righty. Good conversation. And like I said, before we get to the Daily Play, I really appreciate these conversations, being able to engage and feed the audience, but also get information and feedback from the audience that can bring about the changes that people need. So I really, really am thankful for the various people that reach out to come on this show and have these educational conversations that can help us improve our community one episode at a time. The Daily Play, Carla, you know what it is?
Yep.
What is it today?
Say it, but don't sing it, but I'm going to sing it anyway.
Yeah, but please don't sing. Oh, please don't. Don't do it. My ears, no, they don't deserve it. All right, here we go, folks. Help out really quickly. The lyrics are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
She's like, yeah. All right. Quote, and we'll make this thing work, but I think we should take it slow. End quote.
Mariah Carey, We Belong Together. I get that right. It's some mushy old love song.
Help her out, folks. Help her out. What's the song? Quote.
Marvin Gaye. Sorry.
Nope. Quote. And we'll make this thing work, but I think we should take it slow. End quote.
It's a male or a female? Give me a little something.
It's a male. Take it slow.
Tank? No idea. Brian McKnight, based on that little haul in your voice.
It is.
Who is it?
Bingo. There you go.
Oh, John Legend.
Yep.
Oh, take it. Got you. We are ordinary people.
Yeah, that's it. Doesn't go like that. What
That's
you got
the remix.
Inspiration for us?
I believe that the greatest gift you can give your family and the world is a healthy you. Joyce Meyer.
Actually, I remember my friend Jonathan Dill. He used to always say that the best gift you can give your family for the holidays is good health. So, thank you for that one. Any final words, Carla, before we head out?
No, just everyone have a beautiful day and spread some love.
Yes, and I'll make sure to touch on the 5G thing tomorrow, the conversation that was had last night. But we appreciate you, we love you, and we thank you for making us part of your daily routine. If all goes well, we'll be back to do this again with you tomorrow.